Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into the smoky, earthen heart of a world where chocolate isn't dessert. It's destiny. The humid air clings to your skin as you crouch beside a clay hearth deep in the jungle lowlands of the Yucatan. You can hear the sharp crackle of wood, see thin streams of blue-gray smoke rising through a palm-thatched ceiling, and smell the unmistakable scent of cacao beans roasting. Rich, bitter, and almost primal. A woman in a woven tunic stirs them gently in a clay comel, and with a nod, invites you closer. The beans pop and split, revealing their hidden oils and secrets, as if unlocking a thousand-year-old recipe made by and for the gods. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love seeing our little history tribe sprinkled across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat, watching the cacao beans slowly darken to a deep, earthy brown. The woman scoops them onto a palm leaf to cool, then gestures toward a nearby grinding stone. Yes, it's your turn now. You pick up a rounded stone roller, called a mano, and begin to press it rhythmically against the flat metate. The sound it makes is ancient. Scrape, grind, press, like the world itself muttering old spells. Your arms ache quickly, but the scent that rises from the crushed beans is like nothing you've known. It's warm, nutty, smoky, and just a touch fruity, like dirt in heaven got married in a mug. The Mayans didn't just consume chocolate, they worshipped it. Cacao was believed to be a gift from the gods, often associated with deities like Ekchua, the patron of cacao and merchants. In sacred texts, chocolate appears not just as sustenance, but as spiritual conduit. It was used in offerings, in marriages, even in burial rites. And here you are, barely managing to keep the paste from sliding off the metate and into your lap. Now, you'd think this is where sugar comes in, right? Not yet. Not for 1,000 years. The paste you're grinding is headed toward something more brutal. A savory, spicy drink that'll jolt your senses awake, assuming you don't fall asleep first. Historians still argue whether early Mayan chocolate was more ceremonial than culinary. Some say it was mostly a bitter brew served in elite settings. Others suggest it was more widespread, a daily staple in various forms. But nobody disputes how important the cacao bean itself was. It wasn't just food, it was currency. It could buy a turkey, or a night's entertainment, or probably a half-decent story like this one. Now, as the paste begins to shine slightly from its own oils, your instructor, who still hasn't told you her name, adds a pinch of ground maize to thicken the mix. The result is something like a rich chocolate gruel. Not glamorous, but hearty. You're told it'll soon be mixed with water and chili. You blink. Chili? Yes. Mayan chocolate wasn't sweet. It was hot, strong, and deeply weird by today's standards. But your sleepy brain is still stuck on one thing. The way the scent lingers in the back of your nose, teasing some forgotten childhood memory of campfires, dark forests, and stories told under starlight. There's a final step to roasting, shelling. You gently rub the cooled beans between your fingers, flaking off the thin papery husk, revealing the cacao nibs inside. It's strangely soothing, like peeling tiny dreams out of their brittle shells. A quirkier tidbit? Some early cacao vessels discovered in tombs still contain faint traces of the chocolate drink. Researchers have analyzed residue from pots over 1,000 years old, confirming that what you're making now is nearly identical to what an ancient king or priest may have sipped before battle or prayer. Outside, the jungle hums with insect song. You hear a howler monkey in the distance, probably annoyed about something, as they usually are. A thick trail of smoke snakes toward the rafters and disappears. Your fingers are coated in oily brown paste. Your arms are sore. But your eyes are wide open now. Welcome to the start of a journey that smells like heaven, burns like spice, and just might keep you awake wondering why modern hot chocolate tastes so tame. You slide the paste off the metate into a small clay bowl, and it sits there, glistening like dark mud after a tropical rain. Not sweet, not yet spiced, just raw cacao in its most elemental form. Your hands are coated with streaks of brown, and frankly, you look like you lost a friendly fight with a chocolate fountain. But it's worth it, because next, you're going to learn a crucial part of the Mayan process. Grinding, again. This time with more flavor, and oddly enough, with a tool that might bite back. She hands you a smaller stone, sharper on the edges. This one has obsidian flecks, she says softly, like it's both a warning and a secret. Obsidian, the glassy volcanic rock that cuts sharper than steel. You pause, imagining the irony of slicing a fingertip open while preparing a healing ceremonial brew. But it makes sense. Obsidian is sacred in Mesoamerican cultures, associated with gods, death, and transformation. Maybe the danger was part of the ritual. You press carefully, feeling the slight grit as the flecks of obsidian catch on the stone surface. It's not exactly FDA approved, but hey, you're not in Kansas or in a modern kitchen. The added friction breaks down the nibs into a finer paste, releasing even more oil, more aroma. The texture becomes silkier. If this were a modern chocolate lab, you'd call it conching. But here, it's just tradition passed hand to hand, stone to stone. The smell grows deeper now, like rain on warm earth mixed with charred wood and something faintly floral. She adds a pinch of vanilla orchid. You didn't know vanilla was native to this region, did you? It grows wild on vines that cling to jungle trees, hiding among bromeliads and moss. The Mayans knew it well. It's subtle in the mix, but you sense it like a whisper behind the cacao's roar. A side note for your sleepy brain. Some archaeological finds suggest early Mayan kitchens kept cacao tools near domestic altars. Historians still argue whether this was due to its sacred role or simply convenience. Maybe both. Imagine grinding your breakfast brew inches from a shrine to your household gods. If your toaster were sacred, maybe you'd treat burnt toast with a little more reverence. With the vanilla folded in, the next step is chili. Yes, chili. The Mayans weren't shy about spice. A few crushed chiltepin peppers go into the mix. They're tiny but fierce, like angry red raisins. You hesitate. She shrugs. Wakes the blood? She says. And she's not wrong. The heat flares against the cacao's depth like lightning behind thick clouds. You stir slowly, carefully, until the paste becomes thick and smooth. You can't help but think of how different this is from the powdered mix in your kitchen cabinet. No marshmallows, no microwave. Just sweat, stone, and fire. Somehow, that makes it taste more alive. The quirky part? Some Mayan cacao recipes included crushed flowers, tree bark, even fermented corn beer. Experimental, sure. But maybe your favorite latte is just a distant descendant of their jungle brews. Try not to think too hard about that next time you sip your mocha frappe. A child walks in, trailing a woven toy jaguar, and peeks curiously at your bowl. Too runny, she announces, very seriously, before darting back out. Your instructor chuckles, nods, and adds a pinch of masa harina to thicken the mix. You stir obediently, though you're slightly wounded by the toddler critique. The mixture now resembles melted fudge crossed with a curry sauce, deep brown, smooth, flecked with spice. The scent is no longer a whisper. It's a full-throated song. The kitchen is warm and dim, the walls flickering with firelight. You're not sure when you last spoke, and it doesn't matter. Your hands move. Your body remembers. This recipe is older than words anyway. Historians note that Mayan cacao preparation wasn't just cooking, it was performance, devotion, and magic. It required patience, rhythm, presence. Some believe specific chants accompanied each step, encoded in sounds now lost to time. Others argue the ritual was informal, personal. Either way, you feel like a guest at a quiet séance, conjuring flavor from stone and seed. As the final stirrings fade, you realize the mixture isn't quite a drink yet. That comes next. But already, your heart has warmed. Your thoughts are softening at the edges. You're not making chocolate, you're remembering it. And you'll probably forget all of this by morning. The moment arrives. The paste, now smooth and gleaming, is ready to be turned into what the Mayans considered a divine elixir. But first, you need water. And not just any water. It must be fresh, cool, ideally scooped from a cenote, one of the sacred limestone wells that dot the Yucatan. You don't get to fetch it yourself, unfortunately, because 1, there's a jaguar rumor nearby, and 2, your guide knows better than to let a sleepy foreigner wander into the jungle at dusk. She returns with a clay jug, beaded with condensation. The water sloshes as she pours it into a tall vessel shaped like a trumpet. Then she ladles your thick paste into the mix and hands you another vessel, shorter, wider, meant for pouring. You've reached the part of the process that, if done right, will impress any Mayan elder within earshot: the foam. You're told to lift the short pot high, about shoulder level, and pour its contents into the tall one, then back again, and again, and again. The goal? Froth. Not bubbles, not cream, real foam with texture and resilience. You hesitate at first. Some splashes hit the floor. Your second attempt is better. By the third, the chocolate begins to sing. A fine foam builds, thick as ocean surf and warm like breath on a mirror. You catch your reflection in the swirling surface and almost laugh. You're no chocolatier, but somehow this feels natural. This wasn't just aesthetic. The Mayans believed that the foam carried spiritual energy, the soul of the drink. To serve it flat was to insult the gods. No pressure, right? Historians still argue whether the foaming technique was unique to the Maya or borrowed from Olmec traditions. Some murals show even earlier civilizations attempting similar tricks with different drinks. What's clear is that by the classic Mayan period, foaming wasn't just fashionable, it was essential. And it's harder than it looks. You accidentally overpour at one point, and a rich trail of chocolate slides down your arm, pooling at your elbow. Your guide hands you a leaf to wipe it off. You're not sure whether to clean it or lick it. You compromise. Wipe first, then discreetly taste the leaf. It's earthy. A few older women nearby pause their weaving to watch your performance. One nods approvingly. You feel like you just passed a sacred audition. Fun side fact: some Mayan cups were specially designed to trap foam. Archaeologists have found drinking vessels with narrow necks and wide rims that helped preserve the frothy head during ceremonies. One researcher even recreated these vessels in a lab and proved their aerodynamic genius. Foam stability, it turns out, is a science and an art. Now it's time to sip. Your hands cradle the warm cup. You inhale deeply. Steam rises, spicy and rich, thick with history and oil and sweat. You take a cautious taste. It's bold, bitter. It hits the back of your throat with a burn that isn't painful, just surprising. The chili arrives late, like a drumbeat after the chorus. The vanilla lingers. And the cacao? Oh, the cacao wraps around your tongue like velvet edged in fire. It's not sweet. It's not supposed to be. But it is beautiful, ancient, alive. You sit in silence, cup in hand, surrounded by the quiet rustle of woven textiles and the rhythmic swish of grinding stones in the distance. This drink connects you to gods and kings, to warriors and weavers, to centuries of people who stood where you stand, sipping, pouring, grinding, frothing. The quirky bit? Some Mayan inscriptions describe cacao as a portal to the underworld. Not metaphorically, literally. They believed the drink could open spiritual doorways, allowing ancestors or deities to visit. You wonder briefly what modern energy drinks would be called in that context. Underworld mango surge, maybe? The cup empties slowly. Foam clings to the rim. Your hands are sticky. Your thoughts are soft. The jungle air presses gently against your skin. A few fireflies drift by like glowing punctuation marks. This moment, this drink, this ritual, none of it was made to be remembered. It was made to be felt. Like a dream after midnight. Like chocolate before sugar. Like history before sleep. You've had your first real taste of Mayan chocolate, and now you think you understand it. But then comes the next surprise, because the Mayans didn't just drink chocolate. They performed it. Your guide gestures toward a corner of the kitchen where tall vessels sit in a row, each one etched with glyphs and animal motifs. One has the face of a jaguar, mouth wide open. Another features a long feathered bird, wings curled into a spiral. These weren't just storage jars. They were stories. Cups that told tales. Bowls that whispered myths with every pour. You pick one up and feel the indentation of the symbols beneath your fingers. The clay is warm, almost pulsing. You're ushered into a larger space. Half ceremonial chamber, half dining hall. A low stone bench rings the walls. On it sit figures painted in ochre and adorned with beads. A high priest, a merchant, a warrior with a jagged scar across his lip. And at the center, a king. He holds a cacao cup like a scepter. This is a royal feast. And you're the sleepy outsider with froth on your chin. But you're not alone. Even the scribe gets a cup. In fact, some historians believe scribes were among the few non-royals who routinely drank chocolate, perhaps because they recorded important rituals or were seen as vessels of sacred knowledge themselves. Their reward? A foamy draft, served with ceremonial gravity. The high priest raises his cup, mutters a few words to the gods, and takes a slow, reverent sip. You follow suit, even though your hands are trembling slightly from caffeine or awe or both. The chocolate this time is smoother, thinner, like a warm river winding through memory. It's blended with allspice and anise, and the foam dances at the edges like sea foam on volcanic rock. You try not to slurp. You fail. The priest doesn't flinch. He's too busy chanting something you don't understand but feel in your bones. The air thickens. A drum begins, a slow, steady rhythm from somewhere behind the stone wall. Boom, boom, boom. Your pulse joins it, echoing in your ears. This is no dinner party. This is communion. Historians still argue whether cacao was restricted to elites or more commonly shared among classes during festivals. Some murals suggest wide communal drinking. Others show only kings and priests. The truth likely shifts across time, place, and politics. Just like modern chocolate, sometimes a treat, sometimes a trap. A fringe detail? In some regions, cacao was mixed with blood during specific rituals. Yes, blood, usually from a self-inflicted wound by a priest or king. The idea was to mix the sacred with the divine, to literally share essence with the gods. That recipe, you'll be glad to know, was not offered to you tonight. The ceremony flows on. You're handed another cup, this one earthier, grainier, with roasted maize blended in. It tastes like a warm chocolate porridge, comforting and oddly familiar. You sip slower now. The flavors are starting to blur, but not in a bad way. Like different chapters of a book you're too tired to finish but too enchanted to close. Your eyes wander the room. Painted glyphs stretch across the stucco walls, stories of conquest, trade, and rainfall. One panel shows a figure leaping between worlds, holding a cacao pod like a torch. Another depicts a jaguar transforming into a god beneath a cacao tree heavy with fruit. The symbolism is as dense as the drink. You're told that some cups were buried with their owners. In fact, several Mayan tombs have yielded vessels still crusted with ancient chocolate residue. Scientists have even recreated these recipes: chili, water, cacao, and all. A drink for the dead, remembered by the living. The king finishes his third cup, nods slightly, and rises. The ritual is complete. Everyone stands. The scribe rolls up his scroll. The priest wipes his mouth. You do the same, clumsily, with your sleeve. The night outside has deepened. Crickets chirp. The fire crackles. You step out of the chamber, dizzy not from drink, but from time. The chocolate still lingers on your tongue, spicy and sacred. You weren't just a guest. You were a participant. And now, in the hush after the final sip, you begin to understand something strange. Chocolate might have been bitter, but the memory of it? Always sweet. You wake up the next morning, not from sleep, but from that strange, dreamy state where ceremony gives way to routine. The embers in the hearth have cooled, and outside, the jungle is already alive with birdsong and the low, guttural bark of a distant howler monkey. But your guide is back at it, grinding, stirring, pouring. Because for the Mayans, chocolate wasn't just for kings and rituals. It was also breakfast. Today's version is different. Less pageantry, more practicality. You're handed a simpler cup, smaller, more worn. The drink is thicker, mixed with masa and ground seeds. It's not meant to impress the gods. It's meant to carry you through hours of weaving, hunting, or temple repairs. You sip. It's gritty, earthy, still no sugar, and you're okay with that. The thing is, chocolate wasn't just food or drink, it was identity. Entire communities organized around cacao cultivation. From planting to harvesting to trading, it shaped the rhythms of life. Some villages even kept family cacao groves like sacred gardens, passed down through generations, their pods protected like heirlooms. Historians still argue whether cacao was grown solely in elite-controlled estates or also widely cultivated by commoners. Some say noble lineages owned the best lands. Others suggest that even small households maintained their own plots. The truth probably lies somewhere in the soil, where sacred and everyday overlap like sun and shadow. Your guide invites you on a walk to see the source. You follow a winding footpath through dense undergrowth until the trees begin to change. Their trunks are low and gnarled, their leaves broad and waxy. Hanging beneath the branches are football-shaped pods, red, yellow, green. Each one holds dozens of beans, each bean a tiny capsule of history and flavor. You reach up, fingers brushing the surface of a ripe pod. It's slightly sticky, rough like bark, but with a subtle give. She slices it open with a flint knife. Inside, pale, slimy seeds encased in white pulp. You hesitate. "Taste," she says. So you do. It's tart, fruity, nothing like chocolate. You try to hide your surprise. She laughs. "It's a journey," she says. And you believe her. Here's a quirky bit. Some ancient farmers allegedly sang to their cacao trees. Songs of rain, fertility, gratitude. Modern studies even suggest plants may respond to sound vibrations, though no one's tested that with a Mayan ballad yet. Still, it's a charming thought. A jungle filled with quiet singing. Further in, you pass a small altar, stones arranged in a circle beneath the largest tree. Offerings are scattered around. Maize kernels, feathers, a bead. This is where prayers are whispered, where harvests are hoped for, and where the cacao spirit, sometimes imagined as a serpent, other times as a woman, listens. Your guide explains the seasonal labor: planting in spring, harvesting in late fall, fermenting the beans and banana leaves, drying them in the sun. It takes weeks, and each step requires patience. You look at the pods again. They're beautiful, mysterious, like lanterns strung from the past. Historians often overlook the quiet work of women in these cycles. While kings sipped from gold-rimmed vessels, it was usually women who roasted, ground, stirred, and served. The alchemy of flavor happened in their hands, over smoky fires, in kitchens that smelled like stone and rain. You return to the village, a pod in your hand, your fingers sticky. The kids chase a dog past the grinding stone, the same dog that tried to eat your sandal last night. A woman hums as she pours a fresh batch of frothy brew into gourd cups. No ceremony this time, just community. The moment feels ordinary, and that's the beauty of it. Cacao wasn't always myth and ritual. Sometimes it was just warmth shared across a woven mat. Just energy for the road. Just something to sip as the sun rose behind the trees. And still, somehow, it was sacred. As the day stretches onward and the jungle heat thickens, you're invited to witness something rarely offered to outsiders: a Mayan wedding. And yes, before you ask, cacao plays a starring role. Not in a cake, not in a fondue fountain, in a cup, of course. Because in this world, love isn't sealed with kisses or diamonds. It's sealed with froth. You follow the gathering procession along a flower-strewn path. Bright petals crunch underfoot, releasing sweet, musky scents. The bride and groom walk barefoot, their hands loosely entwined, each wearing simple woven robes accented with jaguar motifs and red sashes. A few of the older women carry gourds of cacao drink, already frothy from a morning's worth of pouring, sighing, and storytelling. When the couple reaches the ceremonial platform, 2 cups are placed before them, twins in design, carved with swirling patterns, and the glyph for cacao. The air goes still. Everyone waits, No vows are spoken aloud. No rings are exchanged. Instead, the bride lifts her cup to the groom, and he to her. They drink, eyes locked. The foam clings to their lips like a blessing. Historians still argue whether cacao was a universal part of marriage rites or more common in elite families. Some stelae and murals suggest it was essential. Others leave the detail out entirely. But oral traditions in some Mayan communities today still speak of the shared drink moment. So maybe it was never about status. Maybe it was just about love. You're handed a small cup too. Yours, mercifully, has no romantic implications. This batch is gentler than yesterday's. Light on chili, heavy on maize, warm and comforting. Someone whispers that this particular mix is supposed to calm the heart, which sounds poetic until you remember how jittery you felt earlier from all that caffeine. A fringe detail? In some ceremonies, the cacao drink was laced with crushed wildflowers or even ground deer antler, believed to bind the spirits of the couple together. You're quietly grateful yours is antler-free. As the sun dips lower, the feast begins. Not lavish, not loud. Just roasted maize, squash, stewed beans, and of course, more chocolate. This time, it's served with ground nuts and a hint of smoked salt. The taste is rich, grounding. Every sip seems to say, "You're part of this now." You sit on a woven mat next to an elder who smells faintly of smoke and herbs. He leans over and whispers something that makes no sense to you, but then bursts out laughing, so you laugh too. He refills your cup without asking. You suspect this is a test. You pass it anyway. There's music now, flutes and clay drums, soft but insistent, like wind nudging through leaves. Children dance. Dogs bark. Someone drops a cup and gets teased for it. And in the flickering firelight, everything looks golden. The cocoa-stained lips, the beads of sweat, the gentle hands passing cups from person to person. A woman nearby tells you her grandparents met at a cacao festival, that her family still keeps a grove, though the trees are old and don't fruit much anymore. Still, they tend to them, sing to them, just in case. You glance at the bride and groom. They're laughing now, wiping chocolate foam from each other's noses. It's clumsy, sweet, a little sticky, just like the drink itself. And as the fire pops and another round of cacao is passed your way, you think, maybe we've made chocolate too complicated. Or maybe, in chasing sweetness, we forgot the fire, the earth, the ceremony. Because here, in this moment, chocolate doesn't need sprinkles. It just needs a story. Morning light filters softly through the canopy, streaking the village with golden beams and waking up everything it touches. You stir from your mat, the taste of last night's chocolate still lingering faintly on your tongue, like a half-remembered song. The air is cool for now, dew still clinging to broad leaves. And today, you're going deeper, into the mythic roots of cacao. Your guide motions you toward a narrow trail lined with obsidian stones and twisted roots. Come, she says, to the grove where the gods still whisper. You try to keep up, dodging hanging vines and low branches, the ground damp beneath your feet. After a short hike, you reach it, a cacao grove said to be sacred. And standing in the middle of it, gnarled but alive, is the tree. Not just any tree. This one is older than the village itself. Its bark is scarred, its pods thick and heavy. Offerings lie at its roots, clay tokens, feathers, bits of jade, even a coin or two. You step closer. The air shifts. It smells of earth, of bark, of something slightly fermented, and just maybe, of magic. Your guide begins to chant softly, her hands on the trunk. She explains that in Mayan mythology, cacao was a divine gift. The gods used it to nourish humans after creation. One story claims the god Ek Chua fought to protect the cacao groves from drought and war. Another says cacao trees grow only where blood has touched the soil. It's all a bit eerie, but also grounding. Historians still argue whether the god-associated origins of cacao were uniform across Mayan regions or more localized. Some areas linked cacao to maize gods, others to underworld deities. What's consistent is this. Cacao was never just a crop. It was a bridge between realms. The quirky part? Some early texts suggest cacao trees were believed to choose their owners, that only certain lineages could grow them with success, which might explain why your attempt to plant one yesterday ended with the seed mysteriously disappearing and a squirrel looking very smug. Your guide shows you a pod cracked open on the tree itself, its white pulp oozing slightly in the sun. She scoops some with a wooden spoon and hands it to you. The taste again surprises you. Tart, almost citrusy, nothing like chocolate. But now you understand. It's the potential, not the final form, that's divine. Nearby, a small altar made of stone and moss marks the center of the grove. A low bowl sits there, filled with dried petals and cacao nibs. You're invited to add something, so you drop a cacao bean in, slightly embarrassed by your clumsy reverence. Still, it feels right. She tells you that during solstices, the villagers gather here, offer chocolate to the gods, and ask for rain, fertility, or peace. Sometimes they fast beforehand. Sometimes they drink bitter brews so strong they see visions. You're told not to ask too many questions about that part. A small breeze stirs the leaves. A pod creaks on its branch. You realize how quiet it is. No birdsong here. Just the hum of trees breathing. It feels suspended. Like time has thickened, the way chocolate thickens when stirred too long. You're handed a small gourd cup with a cold cacao infusion. No chili, no froth, just water, crushed beans, and a touch of honey. It tastes ancient, and oddly enough, refreshing. Then, a quiet revelation. The guide points to the ground. A tiny sprout is emerging near the altar, a baby cacao tree. You kneel beside it. It's fragile, bright green, barely taller than your thumb. But it's trying. And suddenly, you get it. Cacao isn't just something the Mayans used. It's something they listened to. A voice, a spirit, a message wrapped in pod and pulp. A companion through life's rites. And maybe, beyond. The sky above opens wider. The sunlight shifts. Your guide stands. The visit is over. But something lingers in your chest, quiet and warm. A sense that you've been part of something very old and very alive. And when you walk back to the village, your steps are slower. Not from sleepiness, but from reverence. Back in the village, the afternoon heat arrives with full force, pressing down like a heavy wool blanket. The kind of heat that makes you reconsider every life decision that led to wearing shoes. But your guide doesn't slow. She's leading you to the edge of the market now, towards something a little stranger. There, under a slanted palm awning, a group of traders cluster around what looks like a tasting table. Except instead of cheeses or wines, there are rows of tiny clay cups, each filled with different versions of the cacao drink. One has chili so strong it might cauterize your throat. Another is cold and frothy, infused with wild honey and flower petals. And one smells like roasted meat. You don't want to believe it, but then the trader smiles and says, "Jaguar." You laugh nervously, assuming it's a joke. It is not. Turns out, jaguar fat was rumored, at least in the more fringe corners of Mayan society, to be a potent flavor enhancer, or a symbol of power, or possibly just the result of someone losing a bet with the village cook. Historians still argue whether such ingredients were widespread or exaggerated through colonial misunderstanding. Some say jaguar parts had ceremonial significance. Others claim it's just legend. You eye the cup and move on. More tame but equally fascinating is the use of a coyote, a bright red seed that imparts both color and a subtle peppery bitterness. You sip one cup infused with it and find it oddly familiar. Like paprika, but with secrets. You try another variety that includes ground sapote seeds and smoked maize. It's thick, savory, and leaves your lips tingling. Each cup is like stepping into a different house of flavor, and each recipe carries a name. Balche, Saka, Cacao Ixim. You repeat them quietly, like spells. A woman beside you offers you a tiny cup with a dark red sheen. "This one," she whispers, "makes dreams stronger." You believe her, even before you drink it. It tastes like molasses and forest moss. The quirky part? Some traders apparently competed in flavor wars, showing off rare ingredients or secret blends during festivals. There are tales of cacao recipes spiked with morning glory seeds, mildly hallucinogenic, or with rare jungle mushrooms. You remind yourself that hallucinating in a foreign village is not on your itinerary. Not today, anyway. You sit on a shaded bench surrounded by laughter, bargaining, the clink of clay. Someone plays a reed flute. A parrot squawks from a perch above, possibly judging your fourth cup. Your stomach is confused but cooperative. Your head swims pleasantly. Everything feels soft at the edges, like parchment rubbed too many times. Your guide mentions that elite cacao blends were often guarded secrets, passed down only within families or guilds. Recipes were memorized, not written. To share them with outsiders was to risk losing a piece of your lineage. You sip your current cup more slowly. Historians believe these recipes were not just culinary preferences, but reflections of identity, markers of regional pride, family status, even political allegiance. Drinking one version over another might signal who you were loyal to, or who you were trying to marry, or who you'd like to avoid. You finish a smoky blend that reminds you of campfires and something vaguely metallic. It might have had ground shell in it. You're not sure if that's intentional or just texture. As the sun angles westward, casting long shadows across the market, the tasting table begins to empty. Traders pack up their clay jugs and bundles of herbs. A child gathers fallen cacao pods into a basket, humming softly. You feel like you've just attended a potluck hosted by a pantheon of very eccentric gods. And despite the heat, the noise, and your increasingly overstimulated taste buds, you feel oddly calm. Like all these wild, spicy, bitter, confusing flavors are slowly drawing a map inside you. A map back to something very old and very true. The sun sinks lower now, draping the village in long shadows and golden dust. You're full, maybe too full of cacao. It's in your blood, your breath, possibly your eyebrows. But your guide has one more stop for the evening. She leads you past the edge of the homes, past the grinding stones and woven hammocks, toward a low mound half swallowed by jungle vines. It looks like a hill, until you notice the carved stone steps buried under moss. Temple, she says simply. Not one still in use, but not forgotten either. You brush away a vine and see a glyph. 2 cacao pods, side by side, their stems curling like flames. She lights a small torch and steps into the shadowed entrance. You follow, the air turning instantly cool and damp. The walls are etched with ancient stories. Kings, gods, beasts, all linked somehow to cacao. One shows a woman lifting a bowl to the heavens. Another, a skeletal figure receiving a pod from a living priest. And then, deeper inside, the tomb. Just a stone chamber, barely large enough to stand in, with a platform at its center. On it rests an old vessel, cracked but intact, rimmed with dried residue. He was important, she says. A trader, maybe, or a scribe. You step closer and see what the archaeologists saw years ago. Chocolate traces, chemically confirmed. Cacao drink had been buried with this man, to accompany him into the afterlife. Whether as sustenance, offering, or symbol, it's hard to say. Historians still argue whether this kind of cacao burial was common or reserved for the elite. The truth lies somewhere between, likely tied to both status and spiritual role. But it's undeniable. Even in death, the Mayans believed chocolate mattered. A quirky aside. Some tombs had more than just cups. They had entire cacao recipes etched into their walls. One inscription described a frothy blend with 5 spices, to be served at dawn on the equinox. Essentially, a ghost's breakfast order. You sit cross-legged on the cool stone floor. Your guide pours a modest drink from a gourd. Thick, unsweetened, gritty with history. She leaves a small offering beside the vessel. Cacao beans, ground maize, and a red feather. Then she whispers a few words under her breath and backs away quietly. You're alone now. Just you, the tomb, and the scent of bitter chocolate in the still air. It's not spooky. Not exactly. More like solemn. Like something bigger than you is listening, but not judging. The way old trees do. The foam in your cup has faded, but the warmth remains. You imagine what it must have been like, centuries ago, preparing the same drink, in the same place, with hands just as clumsy, hearts just as hopeful. And you begin to realize this wasn't just tradition, it was memory, liquid memory. A recipe isn't just a list of ingredients, it's a story you drink, one careful stir at a time. You leave the tomb quietly, stepping into the dusk. The torch flickers out. Crickets sing. The village lights glow in the distance like low stars fallen to earth. And as you walk back, cup still warm in your hands, you whisper thanks to the tree, the pod, the priest, the scribe, to the long line of hands that carried cacao from soil to ceremony, to the stories they left behind, bitter and beautiful. Night drapes itself across the village like a woven blanket, loose, soft, humming with distant sounds. The stars blink awake above the canopy, and fires begin to flicker in cooking pits. But your journey isn't over yet, because if cacao was born in ceremony and raised in daily life, it matured along the trade routes, sprawling paths through jungle and mountain, carved by merchants, guarded by myth. Tonight, you're not just a sleepy tourist, you're a traveling cacao trader, packing bundles of dried pods and roasted beans onto the back of a sturdy little deer-like creature that seems unbothered by your complete lack of navigation skills. Your guide, who now wears a conical hat and an amused expression, leads the way. The trail is narrow and winding. You pass other travelers, salt merchants, jade traders, and one very determined woman balancing a basket of live parrots. Cacao, you learn, wasn't just a food. It was money. In many Mayan regions, cacao beans functioned as currency. A rabbit might cost 10 beans. A night with a storyteller? 2 or 3. A slave? Several hundred. Which means your sack of beans is basically a treasure chest. Historians still argue how standardized this cacao currency really was. Some believe it was local and fluid, like trading snacks at school. Others claim official bean counting systems were in place, possibly even cacao banks. Either way, people clearly took their beans seriously. Some counterfeited them, filling shells with dirt or sawdust. It was the world's first chocolate-based economic fraud. You stop at a market town lit by torchlight. The scent of sweat, smoke, and spice mixes with that now familiar bitterness of ground cacao. Traders shout prices. Children dart between stalls. You spot a stone sign with glyphs carved into it. One shows a cacao pod weighed against a bundle of textiles. Value, quite literally, etched in stone. A quirky tidbit? Archaeologists discovered cacao beans stored in clay pots, sealed and hidden in temple walls, like emergency savings accounts. One pot held enough beans to buy a small home, or a really impressive jaguar pelt. You pause to drink. Not ceremonial this time, just practical. A pick-me-up after hours of hauling through jungle mist. The blend is thinner, saltier, with a touch of fermented corn. Not delicious, but effective, like an ancient Red Bull with no wings. A fellow trader offers you a sample of smoked cacao paste. You nod politely and take a bite. It's intense. Smoky, bitter, sour, and oddly satisfying. Keeps the rain away, he says cryptically. You pretend to understand. As the stars wheel overhead, you pitch camp near a bend in the river. Traders gather around the fire, swapping stories. One man claims to have seen a tree that bore both cacao pods and maize. A trick of the gods, he says. Another insists there's a valley where cacao trees whisper secrets when the moon is full. Usually gossip, he adds. You laugh, sip the dregs of your drink, and stare into the fire. The beans in your pouch shift with the breeze. Your wealth, your warmth, your story. And it hits you. Chocolate wasn't just a commodity. It was a passport, a connector, a bearer of meaning across borders of tribe, class, and language. The pod that built empires, the bean that bridged the sacred and the mundane. A night breeze rustles the leaves. Someone hums a melody from the lowlands. Your eyelids flutter. The fire crackles. And you realize that cacao didn't just travel in cups and sacks. It traveled in people, in their footsteps, in their breath, in the quiet hush of shared sips under the stars. The next morning breaks like a sigh, low mist curling through the jungle trees, dew painting every surface in silver. You stretch, your limbs slow, your brain syrupy. Too much cacao? Not enough sleep? Probably both. But there's no turning back, because today's tale is darker, bitterer. A reminder that even sacred drinks can become sources of tension. As your guide packs up the campsite, she tells you about the time chocolate sparked more than dreams. It sparked conflict. You raise an eyebrow. She nods solemnly. Some say wars started over chocolate. It sounds dramatic. But in the complex web of Mayan politics, trade, and power dynamics, it's not entirely far-fetched. Valuable goods cause friction, always have. And cacao, being food, money, and religion rolled into one, was often at the center of disputes, especially when a noble lineage controlled key groves or monopolized trade routes. One famous glyph sequence shows two city-states in the late Classic period locked in a long-standing feud. The reason? Some say it was territorial. Others whisper it had to do with stolen cacao trees, or a ceremonial offering gone disrespectfully unfrothed. Historians still argue whether these cacao wars were literal or symbolic. But either way, blood was spilled, and the beans were involved. You ride slowly along a ridgeline where two ancient boundaries once clashed. The trees grow wild here, cacao among them, half feral, their pods knotted and scarred. The guide points to a crumbling watchtower. That, she says, wasn't built for views. She tells a local legend about a prince who fell in love with a girl from a rival cacao town. Their families forbid it, fearing loss of trade secrets. The lovers ran away, planted a single cacao tree at the border, and disappeared. The tree, they say, still grows. You glance around. Every tree here feels like it might be the one. Down in a ravine, you reach what once was a field. Flat, rich soil, shaded just right. The guide kneels and brushes away leaves to show you a piece of pottery, barely more than a shard. But on it? A familiar shape. The swirling outline of a cacao pod. You're standing in the ruins of a forgotten grove. A quirky fact? Some Mayan city-states gave tribute in the form of cacao. Regular shipments, measured in thousands of beans, had to be delivered on time, or else. It wasn't just chocolate tax, it was political chocolate. Imagine your rent being due in drinkable form. You sip a blend brewed nearby by a quiet, older man whose family still lives in this region. His cacao is dense, nearly black, with smoky undertones and a metallic edge. It tastes like old arguments, like pride held too long. You finish it slowly, unsure whether it's satisfying or sobering. Maybe both. As you continue walking, your guide points out more fragments. A ceremonial cup buried under roots, a toppled altar stone. All reminders that cacao's sweetness was hard-earned, and sometimes soaked in struggle. You pass a tree that's been burned at its base but still fruits. Its pods hang low, ripening defiantly. And you can't help but think, maybe that's cacao's secret. It survives. It survives drought, war, empire, colonization. It holds its place in kitchens and rituals alike. From royal palaces to market stalls to whispered memories under jungle moons. And as you walk on, heart heavy and full at once, you feel it again, that strange warmth behind your ribs. The realization that chocolate was never just a comfort. It was a force, a reason, a cause, and somehow, still a gift. By midday, the path opens into a clearing where cacao trees grow in tidy, careful rows. Not wild anymore, but watched over, cultivated. The air is heavy with humidity and the faint scent of wet bark. You squint toward the tree line, and for a moment you see it. A flash of movement. Short, stocky, brown-furred. Your guide freezes. "Tapir," she whispers, "and a grumpy one." You step back instinctively. Tapirs, you're told, aren't predators, but they are territorial, especially during harvest season. And you're in the middle of someone's snack zone. But instead of drama, the creature snorts, flicks its ears, and melts into the underbrush, leaving you slightly humbled by its disdain. This grove is young. The trees are slender, their pods still green and growing. You kneel beside one and run your fingers along its bark. It's smoother than you expected. Everything feels alive here, rooted not just in soil but in memory. Your guide introduces you to the caretaker, a woman in her 60s with sun-browned skin, strong hands, and eyes that squint from both laughter and sunlight. She wears a faded tunic and a beaded necklace shaped like a cacao pod. This is her family's grove, 5 generations of tending, replanting, protecting. She hands you a hoe and nods toward the nearest tree. Congratulations. You're now a volunteer farmer. The soil is loose but clumpy. You work in silence, clearing weeds and spreading mulch made from fallen leaves. It's meditative. Each movement ties you a little closer to the tree. Your shirt sticks to your back. Your hands are caked with dirt. And you don't mind. She teaches you the rhythm of pruning, which pods to leave, which to snip, which ones to thank before cutting. Yes, you say thank you, out loud. She smiles at your clumsy pronunciation, but her eyes are kind. Historians still argue whether these ancient groves were communal or ruled by elite control. Evidence supports both. Some regions had powerful cacao lords. Others shared harvests across extended families. Either way, the bond between grower and tree was sacred. A mutual agreement. You nurture me, I feed you. A quirky tradition? In some Mayan communities, first-time growers had to sleep in the grove alone overnight before planting their first cacao tree. It was a rite of passage, a way to prove respect and trust. You glance at the dense undergrowth around you and silently hope no one offers you that honor tonight. After an hour of tending, she leads you to a lean-to shelter. Beneath it, rows of beans drying in the sun on woven mats. Some have already fermented, swollen, rich with oil. The scent is sharp, tangy, earthy. You inhale deeply and it smells like work, like waiting, like patience. You're handed a handful of fermented beans. Your task? Sort them, remove any cracked or moldy ones, and lay the rest in even rows. The repetition lulls you into a rhythm, and your thoughts wander. These beans, dark, wrinkled, humble, are the same ones that built pyramids, launched trade routes, and blessed marriages. The same ones buried with kings. And here you are, fingers sticky, eyes sleepy, part of that lineage. Quietly, gently. She brews you a drink once the work is done. It's warm, but thinner. A farmer's blend. Roasted, ground, mixed with nothing but water and a pinch of salt. No foam, no ceremony, just nourishment. And it's perfect. You sip slowly, leaning against a tree. The tapper grunts again somewhere in the distance, as if mildly offended you're still here. The sun filters through the canopy, painting shifting patches of gold on the ground. And you realize something strange. For all the rituals, the wars, the myths, it might be this moment, this quiet, dirt under your nails, muscle-sore calm, that cacao was made for. Not kings, not priests, just people, just you. You leave the grove with hands stained dark and a head full of silence, the good kind, like the hush after rain. The path winds back toward the village, and along the way, your guide shares stories of the Spanish. Not gossip, not legends, but a turning point, one that changed chocolate forever. She points to the ridges beyond the trees. They came from there, she says, with iron, fire, and very confused taste buds. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, they were met with a world of cacao, bitter, foamy, revered. And their reaction? Pure disappointment. They called it muddy, unpleasant, unpalatable. Some accounts claim they spat it out. Others say they choked it down politely and asked if there was sugar. There wasn't. Not yet. So they improvised. They took the ancient recipes and sweetened them, added cinnamon, cane sugar, milk. By the time chocolate reached Europe, it had been transformed. No more chili, no more maize, no more rituals under moonlight. Just aristocrats sipping sweet drinks from porcelain cups in candlelit salons. Historians still argue whether this Europeanization was innovation or erasure. Was it evolution or theft? Either way, it was permanent. The sacred had become fashionable, and the fashionable would soon become industrial. A quirky aside? Some Spanish monks initially banned chocolate from monasteries, claiming it was too stimulating. But then, exceptions were made, especially when fasting. Apparently, chocolate didn't count as food. A divine loophole. You sit under a ceiba tree, the sacred world tree of the Maya, while your guide pours 2 cups, one traditional, one colonial. You taste the first. It's rich, smoky, gritty. You taste the second. It's silky, sweet, smooth as velvet. Both are good, but only one feels like it could summon rain. The guide sighs. They changed it, she says, but they couldn't kill it. And she's right. Because even as plantations spread and cacao became cash crop, even as enslaved people were forced to harvest it in far-off lands, even as corporations commodified and packaged it for convenience, somewhere in kitchens like this one, the old ways quietly survived. You learn that in some villages, women hid their recipes. Elders passed them on with warnings. This is not for sale. Even now, there are families who prepare chocolate the way it was done centuries ago, not for tourists, not for profit, but because it is theirs. The guide hands you a woven cloth. Inside, a handful of roasted beans. You've earned them, she says. Maybe you'll remember how they're meant to taste. You grin. Even with cinnamon? She raises an eyebrow. Even with cinnamon. You walk back toward the village. Dogs bark in the distance. Smoke rises from kitchen fires. Somewhere, a child spills chocolate and is scolded lovingly. It feels familiar now. Not foreign, not ancient, just real. And in your pocket, those beans rattle softly. Like seeds, like stories, like the sound of something that refuses to disappear. Evening drapes itself once more over the village, warm and familiar, like a favorite shawl. But this time, it feels different. You know the smells now: roasting maize, crushed cacao, wet stone after a quick rain. You recognize the rhythms of the kitchen, the scrape of the matate, the hollow thump of a gourd cup set down, the soft of someone savoring foam. And tonight, you're invited not as a guest, but as a helper. The kitchen bustles with activity. 3 women are preparing a large batch of ceremonial cacao, this time for a celebration. Not a wedding, not a feast, but something quieter, a naming ritual for a newborn child. You're handed a task: to stir the paste, slowly, gently, while it heats in a clay pot over glowing coals. The paste resists at first. It clumps, bubbles, sticks. But with time and patience, it loosens, melts, becomes liquid. You stir clockwise, then counterclockwise, as instructed. Not superstition, you're told. Balance. As the brew thickens, a young boy hands you a small bowl of flower petals. For fragrance, he says. You sprinkle them in. The scent blooms. It's not strong but soft, like memory or lullabies. Historians still argue whether flowers were common cacao ingredients or reserved for the elite. Some sources suggest they were used only in specific months or for particular prayers. Others argue they were personal touches, meant to evoke family or season. Either way, the effect is subtle, comforting. A quirky tradition? In some households, the first chocolate a baby tastes isn't sweet. It's the plain, earthy kind. No sugar, no spice, just the essence. The idea is simple. Begin with truth. You like that. The mixture is ready now. Frothing time. You take up the cup and pour from one vessel to the next. The women nod in rhythm with your movements. The foam builds, light, rich, and slow to fade. You catch a reflection in the swirling surface. You barely recognize yourself. And that feels right. The mother enters with her newborn swaddled in a woven wrap. The baby's name is whispered into the cacao cup before it's passed around. Everyone sips in silence. You sip last. It's warm, nutty, faintly floral. The flavor is simple, but the moment is deep. Someone plays a soft tune on a wooden flute. The child dozes. The mother smiles. The foam rings her cup like a crown. Later, you help clean up, your hands stained and sticky, your heart full in a way you can't quite explain. You sit outside, gazing at the stars through breaks in the tree canopy, and you think about all the things chocolate has been: drink, ritual, currency, comfort, witness. You recall a mural you saw days ago, a figure pouring chocolate not into a cup, but into another figure's cupped hands. No vessel, just trust. That's what this feels like. A handing over, a sharing, something sacred and simple. And somehow, you know you'll forget the precise taste of tonight's cacao. You'll forget the flower's name, the ratio of water to paste. But you won't forget this feeling, this belonging, this brief, bittersweet sweetness. The final morning arrives quietly, like cacao melting in warm hands. No grand farewell, no fanfare. Just the steady sounds of village life humming softly around you, stones grinding, birds calling, water being ladled into pots. The scent of roasting beans drifts on the breeze, familiar now, like a friend who never really says goodbye, just lingers until the last minute. You sit beneath the same ceiba tree from days ago, your legs stretched out, fingers absently tracing patterns in the dirt. The guide joins you without a word, carrying 2 cups. She hands you one, and you know without asking, this is the last. The drink is different again. No spice, no honey, just cacao, water, and time. It's thinner, quieter, like it's preparing you for silence. The kind that comes not from emptiness, but from fullness overflowing. She smiles. Now you've tasted everything, she says. Almost. You glance over. Almost? She nods toward the trees. The rest you dream. You sip slowly, letting the warmth slide across your tongue, down your throat, into your chest. It's not dramatic, not loud, but it lingers, just like the stories. Historians still argue whether the full range of Mayan cacao knowledge can ever be recovered. So much was lost, burned, buried, overwritten. But some argue it lives on, not in texts or museums, but in kitchens, in hands, in hearts, and maybe in dreams. A quirky little truth? Some villagers believe that when you've drunk enough cacao, the trees begin to remember you. Not metaphorically, literally. That next time you return, the grove will lean toward you just slightly, as if nodding hello. You look toward the canopy. One leaf flutters lazily down, lands beside your cup. You decide to believe the story. The guide stands. Time to go, she says gently. You rise, body slow, but spirit still stirred. You glance back at the metate, the cups, the trees, the fire. You won't take them with you. Not really. But they've already found a place inside you. As you step down the winding trail, the jungle opens wide and forgiving. The pods hang heavy above, glowing like lanterns. And your hands, though empty now, feel like they're still holding something warm. You've drunk with kings, whispered with trees, worked beside farmers, and sipped beside gods. You've followed the path of the cacao, from grove to grind, from foam to fire, from ceremony to silence. And now, it's time to sleep. The morning arrives quietly, like a whisper through thick leaves. No grand rituals, no booming chants, just the soft rhythm of daily life returning to its steady pulse. You wake to the scent of roasting maize and wet soil, that earthy perfume of a village coming to life again. Somewhere, someone is grinding cacao already. You don't need to see it, you can feel it. It's in the air now, part of you. Today, you're not here to watch, you're here to help. Your guide leads you to the hearth, where an older woman with sun-lined skin is already stirring a pot over slow, low coals. Final batch, she says, not looking up. You nod, quietly taking your place beside her. This morning's cacao isn't for ceremony or celebration. It's for healing. A young man, barely 20, had fallen from a tree the day before, twisting his leg badly. His mother requested a warm brew, thick with roasted maize and a pinch of bark from a sacred tree whose name you can't pronounce. The drink, you're told, isn't medicine in the clinical sense, but it's the kind that makes the spirit feel like staying a little longer. You stir slowly, careful to keep the foam alive. That's what they keep saying. Keep the foam breathing. It sounds silly until you start to believe it. The drink isn't just mixed, it's animated, alive in its motion, in its memory. Each turn of the spoon is like a breath, a pulse, a story held in suspension. When it's ready, you carry the gourd carefully to the boy's hut. He's lying on a mat, leg wrapped in cloth, staring up at the thatch ceiling. His face lights up at the sight of the cup. You kneel, hand it over, and wait. He takes a slow sip, then sighs. It's not a dramatic reaction. Just release, like a knot untied. You sit there longer than you expect, saying nothing. Historians still argue whether cacao was truly medicinal or simply emotional comfort. Some say its stimulant properties made it useful for energy and endurance. Others suggest it was more symbolic, comfort for the body by way of the soul. But here, now, none of that matters. What matters is the look in the boy's eyes. Soft, grateful, still. You step outside, and the village is shifting again, like it always does, from moment to moment, purpose to purpose. Two girls are balancing water pots on their heads. A man sharpens a machete near the grove's edge. The cacao trees sway gently in the breeze. They look less like crops and more like witnesses. Your guide walks beside you in silence. Then she says, "We don't ask the tree to grow. We wait. We listen." You nod, unsure if it's about cacao or about life. Probably both. You help with the final cleanup, wiping gourds, drying spoons, folding cloths. The rhythm of this place has become your own. When someone hands you a cracked pod, you take it with the reverence of a gift. It's empty now, seeds removed. But somehow, it feels full. And then, just before the sun tips past its peak, the elder woman calls you over. She holds something small, a woven pouch. Inside, 5 roasted beans. "For the road," she says. "To remember." You thank her. But truthfully, you already know you won't forget. The taste of the smoke, the feel of the matete under your palms, the way the foam danced when you poured from height. It's all part of you now. You tuck the pouch into your belt. Light, quiet, powerful. You step beyond the village, past the stone path, into the jungle once more. The air thickens with green and shadow. You walk slowly, letting the sounds surround you. Birds, wind, the creak of trees. You don't look back. Not because you're leaving something behind, but because it's walking with you now, in every breath, in every step. The trail shifts beneath your feet. Roots curl up like sleeping serpents, and fallen cacao leaves crunch softly under each step. You're deeper in the jungle now, moving towards something less visible, more symbolic. Your guide walks ahead, her pace unhurried. "Today," she says over her shoulder, "you'll meet the ones bringing the old flavors into the new world." You arrive at a clearing with a makeshift structure that feels half kitchen, half laboratory. Bamboo shelves are lined with jars, filled with seeds, pods, powders, herbs. Mortars and pestles rest beside ceramic grinders. In the center, 2 young artisans work over a long stone table. They smile as you approach, hands already stained deep brown. Revivalists, your guide calls them. And it fits. They're not traditionalists, not exactly. But they're not tourists either. They take what's remembered, what was whispered by elders or uncovered in tombs, and reimagine it. Each bar, each blend, is a conversation between centuries. Tonight they're making truffles. Yes, truffles. But not the kind dusted with French cocoa and filled with ganache. These are different. One batch is spiced with mamey fruit, another with ground squash seed and a touch of smoked salt. A third? Chili and roasted corn flour, rolled in cacao nibs. It's strange. It's beautiful. It's history in disguise. You taste one. The texture is coarse, gritty, the flavor bold. The chili arrives late, then refuses to leave. But underneath it all, that same earthy heartbeat you've come to know, that same sacred bitterness. Historians still argue whether modern reinterpretations like these dilute or honor the original cacao rituals. Some say innovation erases roots. Others believe adaptation is survival. After all, isn't that what the cacao bean has done for centuries? Found new soil, new hands. A quirky detail? One of the artisans confesses that he posts his creations on social media, with captions in both Spanish and reconstructed Mayan glyphs. Even the gods should scroll, he jokes. You laugh harder than you should. They invite you to help roll a few truffles. The paste is sticky, the process messier than you expect. But your fingers remember. You shape, press, dust, repeat. It feels like crafting memory itself, bite-sized and bittersweet. Later, as dusk creeps in, you all gather to taste. The jungle hums around you. Fireflies flicker. And between bites, they share plans. To teach workshops, to publish recipe scrolls, to send cacao back to where it came from, but with foam and stories intact. One woman says, "We're not trying to recreate the past, just listen to it." You nod. That feels right. They brew one final drink for the evening. Heirloom cacao, steeped in cinnamon bark and lime peel. A little spicy, a little bright. You take a sip. It hits the roof of your mouth like thunder wrapped in velvet. You close your eyes. And somewhere, between the warmth of the drink and the sound of laughter around you, you feel the bridge. Between then and now, between root and reach. The line is not straight, but it holds. You thank them. Not just for the chocolate, but for the reminder that even the oldest flavors can speak in new tongues. As you walk back through the darkened grove, fireflies blink around you like ancient glyphs lit in the air. The cacao trees lean gently overhead. You wonder what they think of all this. Then again, maybe they're just listening, like they always have. The following day greets you with soft light and a sky wrapped in clouds the color of crushed limestone. You're headed to something you didn't expect, a competition. But not the cutthroat kind. No gold medals, no screaming fans, just a circle of neighbors and family gathered around one simple challenge. Who can make the best foam? Yes, foam. You arrive at the village plaza, where long benches line the edges and everyone's attention is fixed on a set of elaborately painted vessels. In the center, 4 participants stand ready. Each one holds 2 pots. One tall, one wide. Their arms are bare. Their brows are serious. This is no joke. You take a seat next to a boy munching roasted cacao beans and whisper, "So it's like a cooking show?" He shrugs. "More like a dance." The first woman begins. She lifts her tall vessel high and pours its contents into the lower one in a long, arcing stream. No splash, no dribble, just a smooth, controlled ribbon of liquid chocolate. A hiss rises from the crowd. Appreciation, not disappointment. She pours again, and again, each time higher. The foam builds, rich and frothy, like sea foam stirred with thunder. Her opponent frowns, then counters with a faster, riskier technique, splashy but dramatic. The crowd cheers. Historians still argue whether these frothing contests were formal or playful. Some ancient murals depict competitive pouring scenes. Others hint at it only in the margins. But the skill involved? Undeniable. Making perfect Mayan foam is an art and a performance. Your guide leans in. This started as temple training. Only later did it become fun. You wonder how many things in life follow that path. A quirky footnote? Some ancient cacao cups were inscribed with jokes. Yes, literal punchlines about bad foam, clumsy hands, and overzealous chili. The Mayans, it turns out, weren't all solemn priests and stargazers. They appreciated a good spill. Back in the plaza, the final contestant steps forward, a boy no older than 10. He's nervous, hands shaking, but the crowd hushes. He lifts his vessel, pours, and misses entirely. A collective gasp. The ground drinks the first attempt, but he doesn't panic. He exhales, adjusts, and tries again. This time the stream is true. Thin, steady. Foam gathers. The crowd leans in. By the fourth pour, he's found rhythm. By the fifth, he's found applause. You can't help but cheer with them. The judges, 2 grandmothers and a weaver, taste from each vessel. They murmur, deliberate, nod solemnly. Finally, they crown the winner, the 10-year-old. His face lights up like morning sun. He's handed a painted cup, a new wooden whisk, and the crowd bursts into warm, playful chants. Then, because this is how things go, everyone drinks. Cups pass from hand to hand, foam slipping down rims, laughter bubbling like the chocolate itself. You're handed a cup by a man who says only, "This one has nutmeg." You sip. The foam hits first. Warm, airy, textured like memory. Then the spice. Then the grin. And in that moment, you understand. This wasn't just a contest. It was legacy. Practice. Devotion turned into delight. A centuries-old dance of hands and heart, passed from temple to table to street corner. You look at your cup. The foam is fading now, settling into a quiet swirl. But it's still there, holding the light, holding the story. Like all the best parts of history. The village sleeps late the next morning, softened by the festivities of the night before. But you, stirred by curiosity more than caffeine, rise early. Your guide waits by the edge of the plaza with a gourd in hand. Not of cacao this time, but of cool water infused with crushed mint. Today, she says, we see how cacao has left the jungle and found the internet. You follow her down a narrow footpath to a clearing just beyond the village. And there, among rows of cacao saplings and solar panels, is something you never thought you'd see out here. A ring light. Yes, a ring light. Welcome to the modern cacao ceremony. Live stream edition. A young man wearing a beaded necklace and wireless earbuds sits cross-legged in front of a small altar made of woven mats and smooth river stones. Before him are 3 bowls, one of dried beans, one of thick paste, and one steaming with fresh cacao. His phone is mounted on a stand. A comment bubble pops up on the screen. Watching from Berlin. Is this the one with cinnamon? He greets his online audience with a calm, deliberate tone. Today, we drink for grounding, for stillness, for remembering who we were before we forgot. You take a seat nearby, just out of frame. The aroma wafts toward you, bitter, rich, with the faintest twist of orange peel. He lifts his bowl and pours, performing the ancient foam technique you've come to know, but with just a bit more flair. The foam rises like applause. The chat explodes with heart emojis. Historians still argue whether modern cacao ceremonies are faithful revivals or spiritual reinventions. Some say they're respectful reconnections. Others see performance. Either way, they're spreading, and fast. A quirky reality? There's now a global subculture of cacao facilitators offering guided drinking rituals via Zoom. Some blend traditional elements with sound baths, breathwork, and affirmations. Others infuse their brews with mushroom extracts or CBD oil. The results range from transformative to, well, experimental. Your guide chuckles. They do their best, she says. It's not wrong, just new. After the stream ends, the host passes the bowl to you. You hesitate. Somehow it feels more intimidating now, even without the cameras. But the moment the foam touches your lips, all that fades. It's the same old warmth, the same whisper of earth and fire. He tells you that he learned everything from his grandmother, who still refuses to be on video. She says if the cacao sees a lens, it might stop talking. You smile, not sure if it's a joke or not. You help him clean up, wiping bowls, folding cloths. He stores the phone carefully in a pouch. The altar, once glowing with virtual presence, returns to silence. Later, you walk through the grove together. He shows you the saplings, part of a community replanting project. We lost a lot in this last drought, he says, but we're regrowing, That's what cacao does. It finds a way. You pass a tree tagged with a QR code. Scan it, and it links to a short video. A woman in her 80s grinding beans, her hands moving with generational precision. Another link plays a chant in Yucatec Maya, set to ambient jungle sounds. Preserving, he says simply. The sun filters through the canopy, spotlighting the young trees. You feel the quiet power of it all. Tradition surviving not through resistance, but through transmission. Screen to screen, hand to hand, seed to seed. And you wonder, if cacao has survived conquest, commodification, and centuries of silence, maybe a little Wi-Fi won't hurt. By now, the paths feel familiar. The weight of your steps lighter. The scent of cacao, once exotic, now wraps around you like memory. But there's one thing left. To try it for yourself. Alone. No guide. No elder watching over your shoulder. Just you, a borrowed matat, a handful of beans, and whatever you've managed to remember. You sit beneath a tree near the edge of the village, a quiet corner where birds flit low and the sun comes in patches. In your pouch, 5 roasted cacao beans, gifted by the elder woman days ago. You set them on the stone, breathe in, and begin. The first grind is awkward. Your hand slips. The beans scatter. You chase them across the mat, muttering. The second pass is better. A scrape, a drag, a rhythm emerging. The paste begins to form, dark and stubborn. You realize you've never done it without someone guiding you. You think back to the ceremony, the wedding, the foam contest. You remember the pour, the exact arc of it, the way the hands held the vessels like something alive. You try to imitate it now, but your bowl is shallow and your pour too fast. The foam collapses. You sigh, laugh, stir again. Historians still argue whether cacao preparation was truly intuitive or strictly taught through family lines. Some evidence points to generational knowledge, passed mostly through women. Others suggest the basics were widespread, with each household customizing flavor, texture, and ritual. You're definitely in the customizing phase. You add a pinch of salt, a crushed leaf of something that might be mint, a few drops of water. You stir, pour again. And this time the foam holds. Briefly, but enough to earn a private nod of satisfaction. A quirky note? Some of the earliest surviving chocolate recipes discovered on colonial paper were annotated in the margins with doodles. Tiny cacao pods, grinning faces, even what appears to be a spilled cup with a caption that translates loosely to, "Oops, too hot." You pour your drink into a small gourd cup, cradle it like it might answer your questions. You sip. It's not perfect. It's gritty, a little thin, the salt uneven. But it's yours. You lean back, the cup warm in your hands, and stare up at the canopy above. The trees don't clap. No birds compose a theme song. But you feel something settle. A slow exhale from the roots up. A hush. A knowing. For centuries, cacao has been passed through hands like this. Shaky, stained, unsure. People fumbling toward memory, toward meaning, toward flavor. You've joined that lineage now, however clumsily. The cup empties. A few flecks cling to the rim. You don't wipe them away. They feel like punctuation. You sit for a while longer, not thinking, not planning, just being. Then you rinse the cup in the stream nearby, place the stone gently against the tree trunk, and walk back to the village. The sun is lower now. Shadows stretch long and lazy. Children race past you laughing, one holding a cacao pod like a trophy. A woman stirs a pot, singing softly. A dog barks once, then flops back into sleep. And you? You smile. You've tasted, poured, spilled, stirred, served, and stumbled. You've learned not just the flavors, but the silences. The waiting. The way cacao teaches by staying quiet until you're ready to listen. And though you'll forget the measurements by morning, though the texture will blur and the spice fade, you'll carry this with you. A warmth behind the ribs. A memory on the tongue. A story in your hands. Your final evening begins without ceremony, just the soft hush of twilight folding itself around the village. Fires crackle low, casting golden rings of light across packed earth. Children chase shadows. A woman hums as she pours one last batch of cacao into waiting cups. You've been invited to sit beneath the ceiba tree one last time. You cross the plaza slowly, your steps matching the rhythm of this place now, unhurried, grounded, alive. In your hands, you carry a cup of chocolate. Not the strongest, not the sweetest, but perhaps the most honest of them all. This final drink is made from beans harvested in the grove you helped tend, roasted by the elder who gave you that first pouch. Ground by hands you now know. It contains nothing fancy, no chili, no petals, no vanilla, just cacao, water, and a hint of smoke. Pure, earthy, exactly as it should be. You raise the cup to your lips and pause. Around you, the night breathes. Somewhere behind you, the stone matate cools from a full day's work. The scent of ash and wet leaves hangs in the air. A dog turns twice in a circle before settling near your feet. From inside a nearby home, a wooden flute plays, slow, uneven, tender. You take a sip. It is deep and dark. Less a flavor, more a feeling. It settles slowly, traveling across your chest, into your limbs, into the places stories live. Historians still argue whether cacao was ever meant to last, or if its power lies in its transience. Like foam, like song, like memory passed quietly from hand to hand. You sit very still, letting the moment hold you. This isn't the beginning anymore, nor is it quite the end. Just a place in between, where flavor becomes silence, where stories steep like warm leaves in water. And now, the night deepens gently around you. The last of the firelight flickers against the trees, casting shadows that stretch like soft fingers across the earth. The village quiets. The voices fall away. You sit beneath the teba, your cup now empty, resting in your lap like a stone warmed by the sun. The air is heavier now, not with heat, but with the slow stillness that comes when nothing more needs to be said. Your breathing slows. The sounds blur. Frogs in the stream, wind in the branches, the occasional rustle of something passing through the underbrush, unbothered. Your body sinks. Your shoulders release. Even your fingers seem to forget the need to hold or grasp or stir. Everything softens. Everything exhales. You watch the leaves overhead sway like lullabies, their edges catching the last threads of moonlight. The stars blink through, not sharp, but velvety. A warm breeze moves past you, lifting the edge of your tunic, brushing your neck like a goodbye whispered by someone who doesn't want to leave just yet. There are no more cups to wash, no stories to chase, only the steady hush of time slipping past without hurry. And somewhere in the distance, a cacao pod ripens in the dark. Slowly, quietly, undisturbed. Its sweetness will come. Later. Much later.